Okay, now, here we are. Let's do a little 6D action. Is that a D? Yeah, it is a D. Okay, we'll talk about the 6D region, which is the biggest region.
Yep.
13 teams in this tournament. I just want to say, out of the two Class 6 regions, you have 25 teams vying for 4 spots. So it's going to be tough. No region tougher top to bottom than this region. 6D, 13 teams. You got a favorite in this region? Because I got nothing.
I mean, you have to look at, when you look at the bracket, I think you have to point out, first off, obviously Langley getting a bye. They're a team that's been there before. They have Jordan Callahan. They're a very solid, well-coached team. They're not going to panic. The region tournament isn't going to be too big for them, as it may be for some of the younger kids on some of these other teams. To me, there are 3 teams that you have to put slightly above everybody else. Langley is one of those teams, and I think Herndon and Marshall are the other 2. Now, that's not to say that Centerville couldn't beat Marshall in the first round.
Right.
It just means that Marshall, because they have Clara Ford, when you have a D1 caliber player, when you have that type of talent, it's not going to be a surprise that you should be considered one of the favorites, because they have to do everything to try to slow down Clara Ford. They can't let her have a 25, 30-point type game, or Centerville is probably going home.
Right.
Same thing with Herndon. They've got a D1 prospect in Devin Newman, who's going to St. Joe's. They're going to have a problem, Patriot, in trying to deal with her and dealing with Brunson. And if Taylor Strauzer's back, that's 3 really talented kids that Patriot has to contend with. I know Patriot beat them last year. That's the other reason Patriot's going to have a problem.
Patriot, I don't know this year because Herndon's, they may be going into a proverbial hornet's nest, except it's at Patriot, but you know, whatever.
But I think those 3 teams are probably, if you had to put favorites on it, and I don't even like the word favorites, but if you had to talk about the talent, experience, etc., I think Marshall with Clara Ford, I think Langley obviously with the experience in Callahan, and I think Herndon with something to prove, and 3 really top-notch talented kids, they would have to be your 3 favorites.
Right. We already talked about Fred Priester and Oakton. Oakton and Osborne Park sitting in some pretty nice spots because they've got byes and they have home games in the quarterfinals. So certainly we don't put past either of those teams. Osborne Park, you know, the conventional wisdom was they're a year away. So far, they went undefeated in the Cedar Run. They may still be a year away, but if some of these kids around Shea Hagens, who's going to James Madison, fantastic player, guard, if some of these players are ready to step up in the big lights, as you said earlier, are these kids ready to do that? Osborne Park could make a run to at least the semifinals. I mean, maybe to the final. Oakton, you know, Fred Priester last year in that title game loss to Colonial Forge, he said, you know, a lot of people have said the next year, you know, well, Oakton's losing these 3 talented seniors. But he said, you know, maybe I could do something with the team I have coming back. And sure enough, he did something after going 1-7 in the conference. Yep. They won the district tournament. You want to take us through that really quick?
Again, it was one of those things that in the Concord, a lot of games all year long were a couple of possessions. There were blowouts on occasion in there, but going into that, I felt like whoever won that first round game between us and Oakton, was obviously going to go to the regions, but I felt like had a really good chance at making it to the district finals, if not winning the whole thing. Mainly because it had been so competitive throughout the entire year. And also, and this is no disrespect to New Orleans Klippenstein over to Westfield, I'm going to talk about this with their matchup that they have against Stonewall. They've been so good throughout the regular season. And then the last week or so, you just felt like the edge from them had gone for whatever reason. And I don't know if it was their kids looked at it and said, well, we've locked up the #1 seed, so it's okay. And they kind of coasted. We knocked them off by 3 at our place near the end of the year. Then Oakton got them by a bucket in what was a very well-contested game. I hope they get that edge back, because when they were playing as hard as they did earlier in the year, back in mid-January, they were really fun to watch and a tough team to beat. Yeah. So they could challenge Langley at the bottom side of that bracket. I'm not going to pick them to beat Langley, but I won't be shocked if they went and gave Langley a hard time.
Yeah, they should get past Stonewall. Stonewall's a good team. We're going to talk about Cedar Run as a whole. Last year, they upset a lot of teams in the Concord. The Cedar Run was very strong, and we underestimated underestimated.
We took them seriously. We won our matchup.
Well, yes, you were the only one, but didn't you win by like 2?
It was close. I think it was a little more
than 2. It was a close game. I mean, it wasn't, it could have been, you could have been a victim there too. Stonewall's a good team. They have Alyssa Sweeney, well-coached team. This year, I mean, I can't see it, but the Concord was so powerful last year, I didn't see it, and 2 of the teams went down right away,
right.
And you almost went down right away. This year we'll see. Osborne Park went undefeated in that district. Westfield certainly is good enough to make a run all the way to the state tournament. Problem is, I saw Langley play last week, and wow. When they're playing like that, you're never going to bet against them at home.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
I think, and by the way the bracket is, I'd love to see Langley and Osborne Park play each other. Again, taking away nothing from Yorktown and Madison, because either one of them honestly could beat Osborne Park. But I just love to see that Langley defense going up against Shehagans, because I think that would be a lot of fun to watch, to see how she deals with all the different things and looks that Langley will throw her.
Well, it was great. We saw last week, Jordan Callahan on Newman from Vernon.
Right.
I'd love to see a head-to-head matchup similar with that with Shehagans and Jordan Callahan. I don't know if it would happen, but Jordan Callahan, obviously one of the best defensive players out there, so it may. Yorktown, Madison. I like Madison, and you're the expert on the Concord district. Could go out against Yorktown with Shipley and Sheen, 2 very dangerous players. Or I think they could make a run. I can see Madison with more experience than Osborne Park making a run all the way and playing Madison in what would be a good game as well.
Yeah, Madison-Yorktown would be interesting. Yorktown, as you talked about with Shipley and them, they like to get the ball and drive it to the rim.
Right.
They're not going to put back to the basket and post you up and do all those sort of things. They're kind of more of a freewheeling motion or spread type offense. They want to get paint touches. They want to finish going to the basket. And Madison is very good at keeping you from getting into the paint. And Conforti down low for them does a real nice job in controlling the paint area. Now, if she gets in any kind of foul trouble, if she struggles with her offense, it could be a long night. It could be a really tough time against Yorktown. But if they're able to lock in and slow those 2 players down from Yorktown, I'm not sure Yorktown's secondary players, their secondary scoring, is enough to get by Madison. That's not going to be a game in the 60s. If it is, I like Yorktown to win it. I think it's going to be more along the lines of mid-40s, low 50s.
Right.
I think Madison ultimately would come out with a victory there, but again, if Yorktown can get themselves going downhill, it could be a long night for Madison.
Yeah, Madison, a team that if they get the scoring, they can make a deep run, but if they don't get the scoring, they can go out right away.
Round,
so we'll see about that. The other matchup you mentioned, Centerville and Marshall. Hard not to love Marshall with Clara Ford, and they've got a lot of young talent around there, too.
Again, when you have what is probably the best post player in the region in Clara Ford, and I think you could probably make an argument for her, Carol Miller over at Edison. Miller's more of a face-up type force. She doesn't put her back to the basket as much, but Ford is probably easily, with her, Terwilliger over at West Potomac, back to the basket type kids, although Ford can step out and shoot a little bit. When you have that type of talent, you obviously should be the favorite in that game. Now, Centerville will go to their zone. They'll pack things in. Gambone will be very, very patient when they run their offense for Centerville. They're going to look to get things down low, but they're not going to challenge Ford by putting somebody in the block and throwing it in and trying to get her into foul trouble. And Marshall does a good job anyway of keeping Ford off the best offensive post player on the other team. They want her coming across and looking to block shots on the help defensive side to keep her in the game. And most teams don't have one really, really good post player, let alone 2. So she gets the freedom to kind of roam a little bit, and that's where she's dangerous on the defensive end, is her ability to create on her own off of the player that she's guarding. I like Marshall because of Clara Ford, but don't be surprised if Centerville, again, slows that game down to a crawl, and if they can keep it down again, low 30s, or high 30s, low 40s, they're going to stick around. If Marshall gets going and Clara Ford has a 25-point game, it could be a long night for the Wildcats.
Yeah, Clara Ford, one of the players I'm going to be most sorry to see go. Marshall and Herndon. Now, Herndon, you can't see them losing to Patriot twice, but
I wouldn't think.
I wouldn't think twice either.
Dangerous to project it's going to be Herndon Marshall, but I guess we can.
Well, let's project Herndon Marshall just for the sake of talking. Centerville's going to have something to say about that. Patriots going to have something to say about that. But Herndon Marshall, out of that matchup,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
You got to think, first of all, if Herndon has Taylor Strasser healthy, which we've been saying all year,
right.
She originally had the shoulder injury, then she got hurt again, when she came back, more minor injuries. We'll see. I don't know if she's playing or not. If she is playing, you have to like Herndon's chances. I think we ranked them as the second best team in the region preseason.
Yeah, I think with them, obviously they don't, even with Taylor Strasser back, she's not the equal of Claire Ford.
No.
She's good enough to give Ford some problems because she is a bigger kid, but she's not the equivalent of Claire Ford. The difference is, I'm not sure Marshall has anybody the equivalent of Brunson and Newman in their backcourt.
Right.
That's where Marshall is going to be into a problem. They're going to have to probably play zone at least some of the time against Herndon, force Newman, force Brunson to make shots from the outside, which they can do. But if they're running cold that day, that's to Marshall's advantage.
Well, I disagree with you there. I wouldn't play zone, too much zone. He'll mix it up, but I wouldn't play too much zone against Newman and Brunson. I'd definitely give Newman. I think where it helps, Bill, is it'll take attention off Newman. Because the last few games with Herndon, or actually most of the season, the defensive attention she's getting is out of this world.
Yeah.
So,
well, everybody knows it starts and ends with her. If you control her, you control them.
We agree. Marshall Herndon, if that is the matchup, the winner coming out of there, you have to like them to make a serious run, maybe to win the region. South Lakes and Oakton, we talked about Oakton earlier. They did a great job.
You're just dismissing Battlefield.
Well, I'm not there. I'm getting to them. I can only talk so fast. Now, Battlefield's a very solid team, well coached. South Lakes, they're going into South Lakes. It's hard to see them coming out with a victory.
Well, yeah.
Although stranger things have happened. Now, South Lakes has already beaten Edison this year, I believe. Oakton this year, I believe, by double digits. Like you said, South Lakes will want it at a higher pace if they get to play Oakton. We'll see what happens. We both agree there are numerous teams in this region that can win it.
And you look at South Lakes, how close were they, instead of being here?
Yeah.
That's a huge difference. You get the home game, obviously, in the second round you get the bye. So they're no team that just okay, well, here, you put them in, and then maybe they'll go by Battlefield because Battlefield's a little down this year, not as good as they've been in the past. But Christy Winter-Scott does a great job with South Lakes. They should be favored again because they're at home, but they could have easily been right where Langley's spot is because they were right there with them the entire season.
Right.
And right into the district tournament. So South Lakes, Oakton, they're going to want to get up and down the floor. South Lakes would love to have that game in the 60s. Oakton's going to want to play that game down in the 40s probably. It'll be interesting to see the good guard play for South Lakes going up against the size and the experience of Oakton.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's this is why we call it a crapshoot region. I have no idea what's going to happen. If you're forcing me to make a prediction, I love the winner coming out of this little area here, this Centerville, Herndon, Marshall, Patriot thing. Whoever comes out of that, I think, is going to be really battle-tested. They're all battle-tested at this time of the year. But I like that bracket.
Yep.
Somebody coming out of there. And I just can't bet against Langley in the bottom half. They just played too well last week.
Yeah, again, as we mentioned, I'd love to see Callahan taking on Shea Hagans in that matchup, Osborne Park and Langley. I'd like to see what Langley could do against Claire Fort, how they would deal with Marshall, because they don't have a post player that could necessarily handle Claire Fort. So I like Langley because of their experience that they have to get to at least the semis, if not the finals of that region. And I'd love to see a matchup either against Herndon again. We've seen that a couple times this year. Why not do it again?
Why not?
Or a Marshall. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're not going to bet against Fred Priester. We're just not going to do it.
No.
Would anybody legitimately? I said, would anybody legitimately be surprised if they won the district? Would anybody be surprised if they not only won the region but made a run in the States? Nobody would. They're just so well coached. I mean, this would, if he is able to do that, and it may be his best coaching
job in at least a decade that I can think of. And I mean, I don't know Oakton's entire history, but just knowing the caliber of player that he's had and coming through there, he lost what he thought was going to be his projected point guard is over at Paul VI this year.
Right.
He thought that he was going to have a really legitimate point guard there. And the kids do a good job for him, but none of them are legit actual point guards. They much prefer to be playing off the ball, but they do a good job of getting them into their offense. They run that flex, and they try to just find the mismatch and bury you down low, and they did a great job doing it against us, and obviously a good enough job to knock off Westfield and then Madison in the district tournament.
All right, keep an eye on this 6D region. It's gonna be just fantastic basketball, and if it's anything like Langley Herndon, which I saw last week,
it's gonna be a blast.
I mean, and those are two of there's so many good teams in this region. The shame of it is, like last year when Oakton and TC Williams met in the quarterfinal, only 2 teams are going to go from this region, and there are going to be some very good teams going home in the round of 8 and the round of 4, certainly. So we'll see what happens. Final thoughts. I want to thank you for coming out. It was fun talking about Northern Virginia girls basketball. Great region, a lot of talent. Hard to predict. A lot of teams, that have been in the Blue Bloods losing a little bit more this year, and that just makes it fun. So the more teams that, get into it, there's a lot of young talent out there. This region's only going to get better, I think, as, our population gets absurd.
A lot of parity, and you didn't have any of those teams that just ran roughshod over everybody this year. I would have loved to have seen... it's too bad Marshall got jumped up to 6 this year. I would have loved to have seen them in Edison for a 5th time.
Round 7, I love it. I mean, it's fantastic. I wanted to see a best of 7 series between the Marshall girls and the Edison girls.
Yeah, so that's a little disappointing that they've had to go over here. And again, if they both win, as you mentioned it, one of Marshall and Herndon is going home and will not advance past game 2. And both of them have really talented players that probably deserve to have a shot to play for a region title, but somebody's going home.
We're going to see some tears this week.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only thing. We're going to see some of the greatest moments you could possibly see, but we're going to also see the flip side of that.
Careers are coming to an end.
Well, all right. Well, thanks for joining us. You going to get out this week, or are you just going to,
we'll see. A lot of
anger, stay home and plot what went wrong?
Watch a lot of film in a dark room.
I mean, you got to get out. It's too good not to get out a little bit. But anyway, thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Jolly. This is Bill Rowland. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the regional tournaments.